Hey YouTubers, if you're having trouble getting your M Audio code 49 or 61 or whatever you may have hooked up to Fruity Loops, I just have a quick shortcut guide that will help you get through most of it. I haven't figured everything out, but I've gotten it to the point where now I'm actually happy. I was a little worried a little while ago that I wouldn't be able to get it to do exactly what I wanted it to do, but I have gotten it to that point, and I am pretty happy about it. So here you go with a quick tutorial just on how to set this thing up. As you can see, I've got my preset editor open. You're going to want to just go through, and you're going to have to change a lot of things, but I went over that in the first video for the most part. Really just what you got to remember is that if you want, you can just look at what I have. All these things that say CC on them, that's basically a CC absolute channel usually. So just look at a CC absolute, find a channel for it, boom, you've got a working channel that will, the reason that you use CC absolute is just because the minimum value will be 0 and the maximum value will be 127. Then you set the channel for it, whatever channel you might want, but I keep most of my knobs that I would assign to anything, I keep those as global channels. And then as I'll show you in a minute, basically I set up zones as well on my keyboard, which is a new thing I found out how to do. And again, I just did this all just by like finding it out myself. You know, nothing on forums, nothing on Reddit, nothing on anything can really give me what I was looking for on just how to quickly set this thing up and hook it up to Fruity Loops. So hopefully you'll be able to set it up in less time than it takes me to do this video. But basically, you've got everything that you can assign. The only things that I have on channels other than the global channel are basically the pads, and then I split my keyboard into 2 sections. So all of these can just control everything, and then the pads are on a separate channel, which I chose 5. Don't ask me why I chose 5. It was just random, and I just wanted to make sure that any channel would work. And 5, I've got channel 2 for my first set of keys, and then you can set the value for those as well. And I'll go into that really quickly. So for my first zone, you have to make sure that this button is on, and click. If you basically want to click it so that it is in fact on. Your first set of notes is going to be, you know, however you want to split it up. You can actually split it up into 4 different zones. I split mine up into 2 different zones just to see if I could get this to work. So I'm sure I could get it with 4 zones if I just kept plugging away at it. But I've got my first channel, my first just refers to the first note that it's going to pick up. So the bottom C is going to be, I chose C0, or C1 rather, and then which is number 0 of the notes that you have available. And then my last note in that section was B2. So it goes basically up 1 octave, except for it doesn't go into the next zone, which has the bottom C for that. So then I set my zone 2 to, you know, notes 24 through 48. So you can see the first set is notes 0 through 23. So that covers half of my keyboard. And then right when you get to middle C, that's when zone 2 starts. And you've got 24 through 48, the top half of my keys, those are all set to the second zone. And as you can see on the first zone, remember, have that toggled on. And then I've set my channel to channel 2. So it's telling you it's on channel 2. The first half of the keys are going to trigger it, and then you've got zone 2 Now this is where it gets confusing. Zone 2 on channel 3. So basically, you have that toggled on. It's set to the upper half of the keys, and that's on channel 3. So I've got channel 5 for some reason, channel 1, channel 2, and channel 3. So at this point, once you get all those, basically you're going to get everything set up that way, and then you're done with the preset editor. The preset editor you can get right on the M Audio website. You can theoretically you could get it without even having the keyboard, but why would you do that? But you would have the keyboard. A lot of people have the keyboard, and when I say the preset editor, they kind of give me a funny face, and I'm like, you haven't even like that's how you set it up to a MIDI interface, it does come with some cool things that you can play with without hooking it into Fruity Loops or something like that. But that's what I bought it for, was to hook into Fruity Loops. So now I've got everything set up so that now it's basically ready to go. Then I go to, if I didn't have this saved, I would save this preset, and then that way, anytime you want to send this to Fruity Loops, all you have to do is load that preset, and so you would load that preset. So I'm just, I would send it, but I already did. And global settings, just really quick rundown. I keep my global channel to channel 1. Just do that and don't use channel 1 for anything else. And then global will just refer to channel 1, and that's how you can remember what your global channel is. Mackie control you want, or HUI, you want to have that set to Mackie control. They give you some cool pad curves and key curves, and basically I haven't had to mess with the octave and the transpose too much, but the key curve is nice because basically now you're going to send a message saying, oh, okay, I want it to do this. C4 just refers to something in the owner's manual that basically just means C4 is as hard as I hit the key, and it's pretty sensitive, like as it's going to be more and more powerful. So the harder I hit the key, it actually transposes. I can make it so that I just tap the key and it goes as loud as it can every time, and that's what I did for my pads, just because I realized that for the most part, even if I'm using a drum kit, I don't really need to. I have these set up to one-shot noises, but if you use a drum kit, you still kind of end up just not wanting too much dynamics. It's like, because then you'll just be like hitting it, and every time you get a slightly different bass drum noise. You could just set it up, I suppose, so that one note, the bass drum, always hits at maximum and everything else has dynamics. That's what's kind of cool about it, is that it does have a lot of options. Sometimes it doesn't have the one option that you would just love, but that being said, it does have a lot of options. So my pad curve I would set then to, I think it's like F3 for that setting. And then my encoder curve, I usually set to C3, but I wish, there's nothing that really just simulates a knob. Even when you have it set to 3, where it has about the, it feels like a sweep one way to the other. It just goes really fast at that moment, and then as soon as you slow down a little bit, it dials back on that speed. And I wish it just 100% felt like a 1 to 10 knob, because these are all endless knobs. They just keep turning. So that being said, enough of me griping. It's a really cool piece of equipment that at first I was like, maybe I didn't buy what I wanted to use with Fruity Loops, but now that I have it working, I'm like, yeah, it's pretty good. There's Also, just you can change all the colors from here, which is kind of cool. It's easiest from here, I'd say. You can also change it with the, things on the keyboard, but it's just so much easier to do it from the preset editor. And that's kind of what the preset editor is all about. Right here is where you change the name of your preset. I always have mine set to Fruity Loops, just so that it comes up so that you can have that, so you know that it came up and you're ready to go into Fruity Loops, which we are. So I am now going to open up FL Studios 12. And kind of the thing about FL Studios 12 is that it is slightly different than all the previous versions. So I had a little bit of finagling to do in that department too. But that being said, wasn't too bad. Here we go. Now start the chapter on MIDI settings. So basically, you open your MIDI options. You just open up options, go down to MIDI settings, boom, open it up, and you're gonna find that because you sent all that stuff to the keyboard, and the keyboard's hooked up properly, you're gonna open it up and you're gonna see the code 49. It's just gonna auto populate. You're gonna go to a MIDI out. Just go to code 49, send that to the master sync. This is revised, by the way. If you watch the old one, I was like, dissing Mackie Control Universal because I was just like, nah, I can't get it to work. But that's how you get the tracking buttons to work. So basically, but it's a different scenario than originally was put out to me every time I got some kind of information on the internet. It said do this, do this, do this, and every time I did it, it was like still not working. And so this is the best of both worlds. This is the MIDI, the Mackie Control Universal, and it's the Oxygen so that it plugs in the keys for you. And so all you do is hit code 49, send that to the master sync. I also told you to do that to MIDI out 3 last time. Don't do that. So just unhighlight send master sync if you set it up like I used to have it. What you want to do is go code 49, send that to master sync, and everything else is going to be blank. Nothing else is sent to the master sync. So then, and make sure your port is empty. That worked for me. I don't know, maybe you have to change the port to make yours work, but save that for the last bit of finagling you have to do. We've got code 49. I have that set up to the M Audio Oxygen 4961, and that's because the keys work perfectly. And until I set up all the rest of these with Mackie Control Universal, none of them, the tracking buttons did not work. I enabled all of these. So for some reason, the original ports that it assigned are the only ones that showed up over here, even if I refresh the device list. So whatever 2 and 4 are doing, it doesn't seem like it really. Maybe you can leave those unhighlighted. You can turn those off. Maybe you don't need them. But this is the way I got mine to work, so I just kept it that way. You set the MIDI in 3 to port 1, and then code 49 to port 0. But I wouldn't even do that. Like I said in the first video, really you don't want to mess with the ports, because if you just if you set up all these, you enable what you need to and send the master sync to what you need to, then when you close Fruity Loops and then open it back up, it basically auto-populates those ports for you. So if you're wondering what ports, or maybe that's the problem, then just let it do it for you and see if that works. And it did for me. And so now I've got my MIDI running to Fruity Loops as best as it can. Now I'm going to show you what's kind of cool about that. First of all, I can press play and play works. I can press stop and the stop button works. Even the tracking ones work, and I didn't even think those would work. It just seemed like a funny thing to have the option to do in Fruity Loops because you use that thing so little in my in my experience. But that being said, the record button even works. So you've got those 5 buttons that were notes before. Now they are working for some reason. I don't know if I found a glitch and it just totally works or if that was how it was designed, but nobody can tell you otherwise. So now I've got a sampler open. I'm not going to add one. I'm just going to replace that. Check this out. I've got my FPC. Open the FPC. I made like a preset the other day where it's just pad bank 1. And now, oh, you know what? I'll open my MIDI template. Okay, so I've already done that in this MIDI template. So, by the way, a MIDI template is nice to have. You really should just be able to hook that up to a, I don't know how to save a template, so just save, before you make any kind of music or anything, just set up all these settings, hit save, and then you have a template. So that's what I've been doing. You can get your empty FPC. I'm going to throw in my preset. And then what's nice is that so now all those are one-shot, things that do all kinds of crap. And then if I don't want to hear that anymore, I can just press stop on my keyboard, which is nice because I couldn't press stop on my keyboard before, and that's where I was making all of my noise. So, yeah. We've got a pad bank, and again, I showed you how to set up all the notes in the pad bank on the last one. That's not really why I'm showing you this. Set up your pad bank to, remember how I said it was weird that you would set it up to channel 5? Well, we're going to set it to channel 5. And that's because that's what it is in the preset editor. So now, even though that's set up to channel 5, I can open a Fruity Loops keys, and I can send that one. Let's just set that to that. And I can send that one to code 49 and the channel of, what did I want to? Because 1 is taken up by our global channel. So I'm not going to send anything on the 1 channel. I am going to send on the 2 channel, however, because we have that set up. So now my Fruity Loops keys are coming out of my keyboard, and my pads are still coming out that way. By the way, if you're looking for notes for the pad when you go into the preset editor, I just set all of mine to the like negative 1 through 12 or 1 through 16. And that worked for me just because that's out of the way of all the other notes. So like C1 or C0 starts like right on your bottom note. So going up, it kind of seems like, these should be below that one because that's a pretty low note, and I don't think I'm going to usually use anything lower than that. And I do believe, don't correct me if I'm wrong, but the key octave should let you get a lower note than that and not bump into your pads. And they're on a different channel anyways now, so that's nice. So anything that comes out of those is just going to be pad related. And now I've got my piano coming out of these keys. Now I've set up 2 zones, so I can actually take another. Let's do, I like this GMS thing. This thing's cool. It came with like an update. I feel like I never saw this thing before, and then I did an update for my Fruity Loops, and it was there, and I was like, this thing is great, even if I've never seen it before. Now you'll notice that I'm going to the top half of my keys, and my GMS is coming out. Now I'm scared because I'm recording this and it worked before, but I don't know if it's going to work now. If I go like this, oh, I've got a piano. So that's bitchin'. So now I've got half a keyboard for piano, half a keyboard for anything else. I mean, anything. Really, you can just assign these two things to any two different things now. And ultimately, like I said, you can set it up to two different things right here and one different thing right here. So you have like, you know, like cool little bass noises and then a cool like crunchy organ noise. And then you have like a whole piano set up on the top, you know, and you can do like all of that kind of stuff. These lights at the top where it says zone, that's kind of important. I forgot to mention that before you do all of this, you really want to have that zone button lit up. And then by toggling those when I showed you how to set up the keys into zones, by pressing that on or off button to on, it'll make these keys light up. And then when you start Fruity Loops, it'll acknowledge that you have two zones open. So I believe you can shut them on and off. I haven't tried that yet. Maybe that's for the next one. But regardless, I just, you know, that's how I found this to work. Also, something cool that I didn't highlight in the last video is that I can go like this and open my mixer, just your ordinary mixer, and I have all of my things set up to that, but you'll also notice that, you know, I only get 8 faders doing that. Well, nine including the master. But if I just go to the next bank, it always gives me this error message on the first time I do it. But if you get that out of the way, then it shouldn't be a problem. But I went to the next bank, and that is set up for my next faders, my next set of 8 faders. So really, it's not a problem that, because all you have to do is hit this button. You should be able to go through 4 different banks and start back at 1. And you can't see it now, but if I scroll back to 1, there they are. They're going. So, very cool. Very cool contraption here. It's a contraption. It's a keyboard. But regardless, it's a keyboard with many facets. And, you know, setting up any XY controller to this pad is just super easy. I love it. And ultimately, you know, I hear a lot of people touting that this keyboard is pretty awesome as far as a cheapo keyboard that's not like, you know, top of the line, feels like a real piano keyboard. But I certainly find that it fits the bill, does the trick for sure. And I'm like completely novice, so I wouldn't know the difference anyways. So once again, I did notice that there was another thing that was kind of cool that I just found out, and that is that if I close this and I want to, let's just do that for fun of it. And really you should lock that into position. That should always be receiving from channel 3. So, and then, my bad. And then, if you want, say, your pitch bend wheel, which is hooked up to nothing right now, let's take the pitch bend wheel and assign it to both of these. So that if I was playing one and then the other, and I wanted the pitch bend wheel to link to both of them, I just have to reset that for some reason. There we go. And now it works. So, by the way, you just do that by going here and linking that to a controller. And then the next thing that you do is going to assign to it. Now, this is normally lit up, remove conflicts, which would say, hey, you already have that pitch bend wheel set to something. I'm going to remove it from that so that you can put it on the next one that you choose. But in this case, I shut that light off, which means that now when I use it, it's actually going to assume that I mean both things are going to be controlled by that. So this means that you can have, I guess you could do it with like multiple knobs. You could have every pitch bend wheel in this entire thing set up to your pitch bend modulation wheel on the keyboard. So that's wicked cool in my opinion, because in a lot of instances I'm going to be using just one synth and then another synth, and if all of the settings are set up to the same knobs and stuff, then that's easier to remember for one. And then also it just gives me more options for, setting other things up. I don't have to use this for that pitch bend wheel in the other thing. I can just use that for some other kind of thing, or, any of these faders can be anything. And that's what's nice, is that these buttons can really do anything. I could set it up so that I hit it once and it just sends out a signal to one shot a sound, or I can use it as faders, or well, I can't use them as faders, but I can use them as mutes for the faders, and I can you got a lot of options, which is nice. So basically, have fun with it, and I will check you later, people. Thanks for watching, and check out my music on the Patreon right now. Later.